Hey guys, welcome to week two's lesson of Access Engineering Computer Science. So this lesson is going to teach you about a new programming language called CSS, which helps you add styles and designs to your website. So last week we learned HTML, which you can see here in this file that basically puts some text and images and lists and links onto my web page. And now we're going to show you how to make this web page prettier by adding different colors, different styling, different backgrounds, things like that. So we're first just going to start off by just reviewing a little bit about last week and talking about how CSS relates to HTML and showing you how to set it up. So if you remember, HTML consists of these elements called tags. So all of these tags represent different entities on your web page. So H1 is like a title right here. There's a P tag, which is a paragraph, image, which is an image, UL, which stands for unordered list, that puts a bulleted list on your web page, and then ordered list, which puts a numbered list on your web page. So that's shown here. And then lastly, just a tag is a link. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new file that we're going to call our CSS file. So if we create a new file, we can name it index.css. So we save as index.css. So you can name it whatever you want in the beginning. You just have to put .css at the end and save this file in the same folder that you have your HTML file from last week. So I'm going to create index.css and save it. And now I want to link my CSS to my HTML. This is just telling my website to look at this CSS file for all the styles and designs that I'm going to tell it to use. So to do that, we're going to, in the head portion of our website, we're going to create another tag called link. Link just tells us how to connect to a CSS file. So in the link tag, you're going to put two attributes, rel, which just tells HTML that the link I'm going to give you is for a style sheet or a CSS file, and then href, which is going to be the name of the file that I'm referring to. And since I called it index.css, I'll just make my link tag href index.css, and then I can close the link tag, and I don't have anything in between because the link doesn't need any actual content. And then I can save this. So now we'll test to make sure that this actually is linked properly. But before we do that, I'll just explain a little bit how CSS works. So the way CSS works is it's a different format than HTML. It's not going to be displayed in like a sequential order like the web page. HTML is defining the content of the page and the order that it appears on, but CSS is telling you how to style different elements that HTML is defined. So each of these tags in HTML is going to be the way that we refer to them in CSS. So what I mean by that is, let's just go to our CSS file, and I'll show you the syntax for how to add style. So let's say I want to add a style to the body tag. Body is referring to the tag that surrounds the whole web page. And what I want to do is I want to give the body a background color. So what I can do here is I want to type the tag name I'm referring to, which is body, open curly brace, and then close the curly brace. And inside the curly brace is where I define all the styles I want for body. So background color is one style that is used in CSS, and we'll talk more about background color and background images later in this video, but I'm just using it as a quick example. So background color, let's just set it to red and semicolon. So what you see here, this is the attribute we're changing. We put a colon, we put the value that we want to set this attribute to, and then we put a semicolon. This is the format for all of CSS. If I want to put more attributes for the body, let's just say margin, which you'll learn next week, so don't really worry about what this means. I put margin, which is an attribute, a colon, and then the value of the margin. Let's say I want to change the styles of something that's not body, like my H1 tag. So I just write H1, I put open curly brace and close curly brace. And then let's say I would say font size 15 pixels. And you'll learn about font size also later in this video. I'm just using an example for now. If I say font size 15 pixels and I save it, Now what we should expect is our whole page should have a background color of red, and any H1 tag on this page should have a font size of 15 pixels. So if you remember, the H1 tag is my personal web page. So I saved everything. I go back here and I reload. Now my background color is red. It's really ugly, but just for the sake of example. And then our H1 tag got shrunk to 15 pixels. So now you see that my personal web page is only 15 pixels large. So that's how the format of CSS works. So now that you kind of understand how CSS works and manipulates HTML elements, let's learn about one example called text align. So let me just save this and undo that. Okay, so let's say I want my title of the page centered on this website. I don't want it in the left corner, I want it in the center. So just like how you do in Microsoft Word or Google Docs, and you can do left align, center, right align, you can do the same thing in CSS. So I want my tag that I'm editing, H1, open the curly braces. The attribute that I can change is called text-align. So attribute I want to change, colon, and then I have these 5 values that I can do. Right now, the default value is left align, but I want to change it to center. And then I start to put center and then a semicolon. And if I save this, and I go back to my web page and refresh, now my title is in the center of the web page. And let's say I wanted to do it for the paragraph also. I can do that by doing P because that's the paragraph tag. And then just the same thing inside these curly braces. Save that, refresh, and now my paragraph is in the center. So this is only going to align text. It's not going to work if you try to do this for an image tag. If I do image and I do text align, this won't actually center the image. You'll learn later how to move the image around using margin and things like that in future weeks. But for now, let's just use text align to only manipulate the text. So this is how CSS works in general. And in the next portions of the video, you'll learn about how to change the background color, the background image, how to change font size, font color, and different things like that. But this is just to show you the basic format and the syntax of the CSS programming language. And then in the future videos, you'll learn more advanced stuff about positioning and margin and border and things like that.
Hey guys, it's me, Genevieve again, and today we're going to be learning how to change our text size and our text color. We're going to make our page super exciting, super fun. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see the code as I'm doing it. Awesome. Okay, so right now you guys have a page that looks like this. You're linking to an external CSS file and your page just has all this information. You can also see it over here. My personal web page, kind of boring, kind of bland. We don't want it to look like that. We want it to look super fun and exciting. Okay, so let's go to our CSS. What's the first thing we want to change? Let's look through our index.html file. The first tag that we have for text is h1. So let's change our h1. So we're going to say h1, we're going to open our brackets. We got to make sure every time we open a bracket, we close our brackets. So let's first change the color. It's really simple. You just say color, then you say what you want your color to be. In this case, you can do it using the hex codes, but the computer also takes some colors. So I want my color to be red. So I just say red, then I make sure to put semicolon at the end. Then I save my file, Control S. Let's go back and see what happens. Reload the page. Now it's red. I love it. But I don't know. The text seems a little bit big for the title. Let's see how we can change that. Okay, so we say font size. It also gives you fillers. So I say font size, colon, maybe 1 pixel. I don't know. Let's see what happens when I type in 1px. Save the file, go back. Whoa, that's really tiny. You guys can barely even see that. I can barely see that. No. Let's try making it a little bit bigger. We can play around. What happens when I put in 1,000 pixels? Save the file, run it. That seems good. I think I like that. Okay. Oh, actually my bad. 1,000 pixels. Make sure not to put the space between the pixels or else it doesn't load. So 1,000 pixels, I reload that. Okay, that's a bit too big. So I think a perfect size for this one, instead of putting the pixels, because that's a little bit weird to work with, I think a perfect size would be around 150 pixels, but just to make it easier on us, we can actually just say large. I want my text to be large. In this case, we reload it. Perfect. That's a large text. Okay, let's move on. We've done H1. What else can we change? We can change the p tags. So that's another text tag, as you can see over here. So now we say p tag. So I'm gonna let you guys pause and think about how to figure it out. So think about, how did we change the color and the size of H1 tag? How are we gonna do that for the p tag? Pause here. Okay, I'm gonna see if you guys have paused it and you're coming back, and let's see how to do it. So we're gonna say P again, we're gonna open our brackets, then we're gonna close our brackets as usual, then we're gonna select our color. So in this case, we type in color, colon, then what color we wanna choose. Again, like I said, you can use the hexadecimal codes, but in this case, we're gonna keep it simple, and we're just gonna type in what color we want, because that's always easier. We're gonna say green. Again, it gives us fill in the blank so we can see what options we have, because sometimes if I type in like lime green, let's see what happens when I try typing in lime green. That's not right. But if I type in lime dash, that's also not right. So we're just going to stick with green for now. Okay, let's see what happens. Save the file, go back, reload. It made it green. One last thing, let's change our font size. Font size. Let's make this 10 pixels. Save the file, go back, reload it. It made it slightly smaller. I hope you guys learned something.
All right, hi guys. So I'm going to show you how to put a background color on your webpage and also how to put a background image. So if we go over to our CSS file, it's a very simple line of code. You go background color, you do a colon, and then you do the color that you want to do. So you can say like blue or something like that. Then go over and refresh your web page, and the background will be blue. But the CSS file has a limited like number of colors that it actually knows. So if you want to go and get a more specific color, you can go to the color picker. I'm assuming you've probably already been shown how to do this. So let's pick a nice shade of blue, something like that. And you copy this code that's right here, this like 6-digit thing, and you can paste that in here. And then if you go over and refresh your page, it'll be the background color that you want. So now if you want to do an image instead, what you need to do is find an image first of all. Oops, not an image. And you can save it. It is important that you save it in the same folder that you have your website in. So this is the folder that I have my website. Okay, so I've saved the image, and now you can go here and change it from background color to background image. And then instead of the color, what you're going to do is URL. And then in parentheses, and then in quotes, you put whatever the image is called. So mine was called pen.png. And you can save it, and then go and refresh your page. And it looks very kind of poopy. So what we're going to do now is there are different like code lines that you can do to adjust the image location and stuff like that. So what we want to do is background size first of all, and contain. So what this is going to do is it's going to make sure that the entirety of your picture is shown in your website, right? So now you can see the whole picture. Another thing that you can do, if you only want to see your picture once, see like it repeats. So we can change the background's repeat to be no repeats. So we'll save that and then go and refresh over here. And now you're only going to see your picture once. Something else that you can do is instead of having it like on the left, you can center your image, position, and center. See, now it's centered in your website. And you can see it's centered in the center here, but also if I go and make it back to the smaller part, it's centered also like, and however big the window is that you have. So something else that you can do for the size, instead of saying contain, you could specify how large you want your image to be. So if we wanted it to be like 50 pixels or something, it'll make the image very, very tiny. but notice it'll still be in the center, as we said, and it will not be repeating. But if we say we wanted to make it repeat, we could get rid of this line of code. Now it's going to be the super tiny image just repeated a bunch of times. So we can put that back. And something else that you could do is you could specify in terms of percentages. So if you say like 50%, you can see that it's going to be 50% horizontally. So you could also specify 50% vertically, and it'll make it 50% in both directions, and it'll just stretch your image so that it like kind of follows these specifications. But if you only put the first one, it'll be like horizontally how much it's going to take up, and the vertical distance will be scaled proportionally based on your image. And I believe you can see the same thing with pixels, right? As we said before, like we want it to be 10 pixels. It'll be 10 pixels, and the vertical, since we didn't specify, it'll be scaled proportionally based on images. But if you wanted it to be 10 pixels by like 100 pixels, it would probably look really stupid. Yeah. So it'll scale it proportionally based on what you tell it. So we can put this back to, or if you do auto, it'll do whatever the original size of the image was. So the original image was gigantic. So it'll make the original image, it'll make the image on your website the same size that it was originally. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys. So you can kind of mess around with making the image, picking different images and making it however you want it to be. If you have any questions, we have office hours this weekend.